Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today, I'm talking about the Beatles' 1964 US albums in mono box set. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So I've been a huge fan of the Beatles ever since I was probably maybe 13 or 14 years old when I first started listening to them, and I've always loved the earlier period from the band. So, but I mean, that doesn't mean that they didn't make great albums later in their career. I think probably Let It Be, Abbey Road, and probably Revolver are my top three albums, but I think there's an innocence to that earlier period before they got like over the top experimental, which, I know there's a lot of people out there that love Sgt. Pepper, and a lot of people rate it as one of the greatest albums of all time, but there are some good songs on it, but most of it just didn't work for me. And I think it's the same thing with the White Album. You can probably cut, probably a quarter out of that album and make it a better album overall. So, of course, I was pretty excited to see that they're going to release a box set for these 1964 US albums. So when it first went up for pre-order, I debated pre-ordering it. It's $300, which isn't bad for 6 albums. But then I saw they're going to release them individually for like $30 each. It made more sense to just kind of hold off on that box set and just pick them up, outside of that set. Because they're really the only thing you're getting in addition to in that box set is the Beatles story, which is there's interviews on there, there's like narrative stories on there, there's like clips from press conferences, stuff that most people aren't going to really care about. Honestly, if I bought the box set, I probably only listen to it once, maybe twice. And if I want to listen to it, I mean, you can pick them up in used record stores for pretty cheap. You can get them off Discogs for like 10 or 15 bucks if you really want to listen to that. So you got that, and then the box, that's really it for an extra, 120, 130 bucks. So my big issue with this box set is the way it was allocated. So, of course, I always try to support independent record stores as much as I can. Of course, I buy records from Amazon and box stores, wherever I can find them. But the very few copies actually went out to record stores, at least in my area. They sold out pretty quick. Some record stores I know had issues filling the pre-orders that they took online. And a majority of these ended up going to Amazon, which you can still hop on Amazon right now. They're in stock. Actually, last time I looked, I think they had them on sale for like $275. I ended up actually getting a good deal on the 6 albums. I picked them up for less than half of what I would have spent for that box set. Of course, around the holidays, there's always sales online. So I think I ended up getting these for like 25 or 30% off, which I was surprised because a lot of record stores or a lot of the online stores you go to that had holiday sales, a lot of them excluded the Beatles set or the Beatles albums. I think it was You Discover Music is where I found these for pretty cheap. Like I said, I paid less than $150 for all 6 of these albums. So I guess my question to everyone out there is, if you bought the box set, what made you decide to get the box set over the individual albums? It's not like the box is numbered or anything like that. Of course, it's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. It just didn't make any sense to me to get that box, for, the extra $150 when all you get is just a box and an album that I'm never going to listen to. Because the albums themselves, there's really no difference. The jackets are the same. The inserts are the same. The music's all the same. So I guess that's the thing that's important to me is the music. So it just didn't make sense to spend the extra money. So as for the sound quality of these albums, I didn't have a really good way to do a proper apples to apples comparison because the only album I have of any of these, at least the only older pressing I have, is the Beatles' second album. And I think this is a 71 pressing, and as you can see, it's in stereo. So like I said, it's not exactly apples to apples, but when I compared this to the new pressing, I mean, the new pressing wins hands down. There's just a clarity to the new album. It's dynamic. It sounds awesome. It sounds like the band is right there playing in front of you. And that's not to say that this older pressing sounds bad, but I just wasn't expecting such a huge difference between the 2 pressings. And something else I noticed right away is, and it might be kind of hard to see on the camera, but the artwork on this new pressing looks a lot better than it does on the 71. You can see it's definitely lighter. It's more clear than what you're getting on the older pressing. But I have talked to people that have done proper comparisons with the older pressings of all these albums and came to the same conclusion that these new pressings sound absolutely beautiful. I think they're definitely worth the money you're dropping for these new albums. And that's not always the case with a lot of reissues that you get today. I've compared a lot of them to older pressings that I have, and a lot of my first pressings, they do sound better than a lot of the reissues you get today, but that's not the case with these albums. The one thing that I was expecting them to do differently between the two releases is the insert that's inside these. I thought this was really cool. This is one of the things I love to geek out on when it comes to music, are the mastering notes that's included in this. Of course, it comes with the same essay that's on the inside. This is from Meet the Beatles, but it's got the same essay in there. But it's cool to go over this stuff. This is the stuff that I think is really cool. A great little added bonus that they put on these albums. And I'd love to see more reissues do stuff like this. I know Rhino did something similar with the Doors box set that they just released, and it's just it's one of those things that where in a lot of albums and a lot of box sets that I get, a lot of times you'll go through and look at the insert once, or maybe not at all. And this is something that I'll go back to multiple times to check out, because every time you look at it, I feel like I see something different on there. And I guess it's just the attention to detail, because I think it's also cool that they included, or they tried to make this as close to the original release as they could. Even they've got the inserts that the albums go in, and just those little touches, I think, that add, at least to me, it adds a lot to the release. So I already took all these, ran through my ultrasonic cleaner, because that's the first thing I do when it comes to albums, especially as dirty as these albums were. Pretty dirty when I got them, but I think a lot of new albums are pretty filthy. I always run them through a cleaner. Now that I've got my ultrasonic cleaner, I always clean them that way, and it really makes a huge difference in the albums. I always put them in anti-static sleeves. I do dual pocket outer sleeves also. The albums that you got in the set are Meet the Beatles, which I think is like I said, they perfectly replicated the original jacket. And then you got the Beatles' second album, which that's one of my favorites. Like this, that's why I bought the used copy that I had, is because how much I love this album. It's the back of it. I still have that in the my dual pocket sleeve. And I also kind of went back and forth on whether or not I wanted to grab a copy of A Hard Day's Night, because I have the other version of it, the UK version. But I ended up grabbing it just because I wanted to have all 6 of the albums. So it's the front of the jacket there, and the back. I mean, there's not. Of course, everyone knows the US version and the UK version. There's not much of a difference between the two. And then another one of the Beatles albums I absolutely love is Something New. There's the back of it there. I almost bought a copy of Beatles 65. It's probably about a month or so back. I saw a good, perfectly clean copy. I think it was it wasn't a first press. It was an early pressing though. It was probably like a late 60s press, and it looked great. But I decided to pass on just because I thought I was going to get all 6 of these. There's the Beatles 65, and I haven't had a chance to go through all the mastering notes on all these. And then the only album that I really had a question about was the early Beatles, because this wasn't released in 64. This was released in 65 here in the US. But I didn't realize that this is actually Introducing the Beatles, which was released in early 64 under VJ Records and not Capitol. The interesting thing about the artwork for the early Beatles is this is actually the picture that's on the back of the UK version of Beatles for Sale. And it's the only one of the 6 albums where the cover doesn't look great, but I'm sure it's hard to find, a high quality picture from 60 plus years ago. And I hope this is just the beginning for reissues from the Beatles. I'd love to see more stuff like this. I'd love to first off see them reissue the Beatles in mono box set, which I'm sure a lot of people out there would love to see. I'd love to see them do an official pressing of Hey Jude, which hasn't been reissued since the 70s. I think they could do Let It Be Naked. I'd love to have a copy of that. And I think it's been, about 20 years that's been available without getting reissued. I'd love to see them do reissues of the anthology, the 3 anthology releases, because I don't think Anthology 1 has ever been available on vinyl. I know Anthology 2 and Anthology 3 have been, because I've seen both of those, actually pretty recently, but I've never seen a copy of Anthology 1. So there's more stuff I'd love to see them do from the Beatles and have this kind of treatment. So I hope this is just the tip of the iceberg for these Beatles reissues, because there's stuff, like I said, it's been long out of print that they need to reissue. I'd love to not see them do the whole over-the-top expensive box set thing, though, unless they're going to do the Beatles mono box set, because like I said, I'd love to have a copy of that. But outside of that, Just release the albums individually and not worry about have a box set that has really nothing different than what you're going to get in the individual releases. And I might be wrong, but the way they rolled this box set out, it just looks like a cash grab to me. And if I'm wrong, it wouldn't be the first time I was wrong about something, but announcing this box set, having a bunch of people pre-order it, and release these albums individually, it just seems like a cash grab to me. Especially when there's really no big difference between the box set and the individual releases. They know people are going to buy that box because it's the Beatles, and they know Beatles fans are going to buy those up, and they're going to be out of stock. If you're going to do this, either do everything as a box set, because obviously they had enough copies of the other albums to make a bunch more box sets, or just do them all individually. Just do one or the other, not both. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. I'd love to know what you guys think of this. Like I said earlier, did you pick up the box set? What was the reasoning behind grabbing the box set compared to picking up the albums individually? Because I just don't see a huge difference. I'm glad they sound great. These albums sound fantastic. I think for the most part, these are going to be the way to listen to these great albums. So I'm glad they're available out there individually for people to pick up. But let me know what you guys think. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.